Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narotamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudiraye Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu Nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16, text number 25. Darya Uvacha Bhavan hi Veda Tat Sarvam Yanmam Dharmanu Prishyasi Chaturbir Vartaseyena Pader Loka Sukavahi Daryanuvacha Bhavan hi Veda Tat Sarvam Yanmam Dharmanu Prishyasi Chaturbir Vartaseyena Pader Loka Sukavahi Bahai Daryanuvacha Bhavan hi Veda Tat Sarvam Yanmam Dharmanu Prishyasi Chaturbir Varsaseyena Pader Loka Sukavahi Vijay Prabhu. Can you pass me my water?
Bhavan hi Veda Tat Sarvam
Tat Sarvam
Janmam Dharman Prichyasi Chaturbhir Vartaseyena Pader Loka Sukhavahai
Jesh? I think it's okay, you can get the phone from an undisturbed. You can also sit closer. You're out there in far left field. Vacha Bhavani Veda Tat Sarvam Yamam Dharmanu Prishyasi Chaturbir Varsaseyena Dharani Uvacha Mother Earth replied, Bhavan, your good self, he, certainly, Veda, no, Tat Sarvam, all that you have inquired from me, yet that, Mam, from me, Dharma, O personality of religious principles, Anuprishyasi, you have inquired one after another. Chaturbir, by four. Varsase, you exist. Yena, by which? Padai, by the legs. Loka, and each and every planet. Sukha avahai, increasing the happiness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. The earthly deity, in the form of a cow, thus replied to the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once you too were maintained by 4 legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. Purport. The principles of religion are laid down by the Lord himself, and the executors of such laws is Dhammaraj or Yamaraj. Such principles work fully in the age of Satya Yuga. In the Treta Yuga, they are reduced by a fraction of 1/4. In Dwapara Yuga, they are reduced to 1/2. And in Kali Yuga, they are reduced to 1/4, gradually diminishing to the 0 point. And then devastation takes place. Happiness in the world depends proportionately on the maintenance of the religious principles, individually or collectively. The best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. Thus one can be happy during the span of life and ultimately return home to Godhead. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhagavan Sarvabhuteshu Lakshita Swatmana Harihi Jister Budyadi Birjasta Lakshanayar Anuma Pakai. We're entering into the section of this chapter where Mother Earth is going to be speaking about why she is in such a depressed condition. And she's pointing out to the bowl of Dharma that it's not that I'm only in a not so great position, you're also not doing so well either. And she'll go on to say that actually the cause of my dissatisfaction is seeing you in such a state and seeing the whole world in such a state. And then she explains that it's because of the disappearance of the Lord that all of these things are beginning to take place. And then Srila Prabhupada says something interesting in this verse. Happiness in the world depends proportionally on the maintenance of religious principles individually or collectively. So Krishna's disappearance from the world, as we understand everything in Srimad Bhagavatam can be understood directly, literally, and it can also be understood didactically, and it can also be understood metaphorically. So how do we understand this principle that when Krishna is outside of our life, then we can't feel genuine happiness. And there is a diminishment of the principles of Dharma, no matter how much one tries to cultivate good qualities in this world. So for instance, we see in companies and in schools and in various types of institutions, they encourage people to cultivate principles of productivity. They encourage people to cultivate principles of mental equilibrium. And they actually want people to have good character that work for their companies. Many companies nowadays, from my understanding, I've never worked for a company, but maybe all of you can tell me if this is true or not, that many people, if they are working for a company, or if they do an interview for a company, the company is not just evaluating them for the skills that they have. Many times, especially if you're being hired as a manager, can someone confirm this for me, what I'm about to say? That if you're working as a manager, the company is not only interested in the skills which you have, but they're interested in the character which you possess in order to utilize those skills in such a way that you're able to delegate responsibility and empower your team, and also keep your team encouraged and inspired to be able to work at a high level of productivity. That's generally what companies are looking for, especially in managers. They want to see character along with skills. If someone has skills but they don't have character, it doesn't really matter. And generally, even if someone comes and works for a company but they lack character, they won't be able to stay on for so long, generally speaking. So people want to see the principles of religion inherently in society. People like seeing qualities of compassion. People like seeing qualities of humility. People like seeing qualities of tolerance. People like seeing qualities of truthfulness. But many times, despite the fact that people like this, they feel that in order to get ahead in the world, they need to compromise these principles for cultivating qualities such as deceitfulness, pride, arrogance, lust, in order to get ahead. So this is what's causing pain to the earth, is that people, due to a misconception of life, due to a misalignment with who they actually are and what will bring them satisfaction, despite the fact they inherently desire those things. Like, for instance, we see nowadays, Donald Trump in the White House, he has many policies in place which people disagree with. But simultaneously, you see, he tries to present himself as someone who's doing good for the world by ending wars, this and that. Why does he do that? Well, it's a political strategy called a populist. It's a populist strategy, which basically you appeal to the sentiments of the general classes of people in order to push forward your agenda. So you speak in such a way that they resonate with those values, and then they vote for you on the basis of those values which you presented. So even within politics, even within the mundane sense, people try to position themselves and present themselves in such a way that they're moral, that they're religious. Even you see that some of the most heinous leaders in the world, they're aligned with some particular religion. We see that these, like, for instance, I think in more of the Middle Eastern countries, sometimes you have very heinous leaders that are, committing genocide left and right, but they claim themselves to belong to a particular religion. They identify with a particular religion. So inherently, human beings want to be aligned with some type of principles. There's always some principles which human beings want to live within. And as soon as they try to stop living without principles, you can see their life becomes extremely chaotic. What's the issue with the life of homelessness? Why is it such a deplorable condition of life? Because generally it's a life without principles. You don't have responsibility, you don't have duty, and you don't have a higher sense of living. You're more or less kind of just floating through the world, trying to get by without any type of responsibility. So what's being spoken here is Dharman tu sakshat Bhagavan pranitam, that the principles of religion, they're given by Krishna himself. So the principles of religion are given in order to ensure that people have a consciousness of Krishna within their life. That's the purpose of religion. Savai pum samparo dharma, yator bhakti adhoksaja. To have a consciousness of adhoksaja, to have devotion for adhoksaja. This is the supreme religion. And Srila Prabhupada is saying that happiness in the world depends proportionally on the maintenance of religious principles, individually or collectively. The best part of valor is to maintain principles despite all kinds of odds. So when Yudhishthira and the Pandavas were lamenting the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, there's this very interesting principle which Krishna illuminates. Yudhishthira was seeking solace of the heart for what had just happened, with how so many people were killed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all for the sake of them acquiring a kingdom. And he couldn't process that what they were doing was actually of any moral value to begin with, despite the fact Krishna sanctioned it, despite the fact Duryodhana was clearly out of alignment in many, many ways. And despite the fact that Dhritarashtra, due to his weakness of heart, was completely blinded spiritually and materially. And there's this arrangement which Krishna makes where Yudhishthira approaches Krishna in order to seek solace, but Krishna is not able to give him solace. And then he approaches Vyasadeva, and he's not able to receive solace. Then Krishna directs Yudhishthira to Bhishma. So why does Krishna make this arrangement for Yudhishthira to be directed towards Bhishma? There's many principles within this pastime in relationship to this. There's this verse, Harako pratishtam shrutayo nabinam nasya rishir yasya matam nabinam dharmasya tatvam guhitam guhayam mahajana yena gatasapanta. This verse comes, I think, in the Mahabharata. And it says, Harako pratishtam shrutayo nabinam, that the principles of logic, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was a logician, he would go down the street and he would stop someone and he'd argue with them. And then he would defeat the person in argument. And then he'd defeat his own argument. And then he'd reverse it and defeat the argument which he just gave. So he would confuse people and people's heads would just spin. This is showing how confusing logic can be, because there's always there's always an argument and a counter argument. And it's just based on how well one can exercise their intelligence. And then it says, Nasyarashir yesya matam nabina, that the conclusions of the sages, it's extremely variegated. Actually, the principle of being a muni is that you are able to come up with your own idea and have a debate with someone else. So you find this actually in universities and colleges. Josh, you probably know this better than any of us. You have an original idea that you're having to present for your PhD? Yeah. So the whole idea of original idea is that they're trying to train you to become a muni. They're trying to train you to become a materialistic muni, first-class materialistic muni. So you can have your own idea, and actually intellectuals, they become so fascinated with the ideas that they have. For them, intellectual property is like the greatest treasure, and actually they're willing to forego all types of comforts in order to acquire that original idea, which can win them some type of recognition, which can win them some type of prize. It's like the greatest triumph is to have that original idea and have that intellectual property. So Nashya Rishir Yesya Matam Nabinam. The conclusions of the sages is extremely variegated, so one can't come to a conclusion. Dharmasya Tatvam Guhitam Guhayam. And furthermore, the principles of Dharma, the principles of religion, are extremely confidential. So it's not so easy to understand them. Like, for instance, we meet lots of people, Vijay Prabhu, I think you'll know, that some people, they come up and they say, oh, I've read Bhagavad Gita. And then you say, oh, really? You know what Bhagavad Gita is about? And they say, no. Why can't they understand even the Bible? You tried reading the Bible on your own. Christians say you have to have fellowship in order to read it. The principles of religion are extremely confidential. So how do we understand the principles of religion? Mahajano yena gatasapanta. We have to approach the Mahajan. So this is explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that the Sanudina Brahmana in Vrindavan, Sanudina Brahmana was a Brahmana from a lower caste community. He was of less qualification than other Brahmanas. So in India, there's like different grades of Brahmanas. There's first-class Brahmanas and there's kind of lower-class Brahmanas. And he was a lower-class Brahmana, and Mahaprabhu came from a very high-class Brahmana family. And when Mahaprabhu went to take lunch at his home because they had been performing kirtan in Vrindavan together. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had seen the ecstatic symptoms of love, which could only come from someone who is in the same line as him. So he asked, where did you develop such symptoms of love? And then he revealed, I'm a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And it was revealed that Madhavendra Puri had taken lunch in the Sanodiya Brahmana's home. So according to the principles of Dharma, conventionally, Mahaprabhu being a high-class Brahmana and being a sannyasi from a high-class Brahmana family had no position to go take lunch in the home of the Sanodiya Brahmana. But because Madhavendra Puri had taken lunch there, Mahaprabhu agreed, and he quoted this verse, Tarako Pratishtam Shrutayo Bibina. And then he said that the character of Madhavendra Puri carries the principles of religion. One can understand the principles of religion through the example of a person like Madhavendra Puri. So Krishna, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, after the war had been completed, he directed Bhishmadev. He directed Yudhishthira to Bhishmadev. Why? Mahajana Yena Gatasapan. And in relationship to this, the best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. When Yudhishthira approached Bhishmadev, first of all, Bhishmadev, he offers this verse, Aho kashtam aho nayam yadyuyam dharmanandana jivitam arhata kleshtam vipradharma chutashraya. Says, Aho kashtam aho nyayam yadyuyam dharmanandana, that, oh, sons of Dharma, actually, what you've undergone, none of you deserved. None of you deserved to have been treated the way you were treated. None of you deserved to have been cast into the forest. None of you deserved for your home to be set on fire, for your wife to be stripped nearly naked in the assembly. You didn't deserve any of these things. And the fact that you've gone through this is a great regret for me. It's a great pain in my heart that you've gone through this. But he says, Vipradharma Chudashraya. Despite the fact that you went through these things, you have triumphed over all other adversaries. Everyone who tried to defame you, everyone who tried to blaspheme you, everyone who tried to kill you, everyone who tried to curse you, all of them have been defeated, and you have survived. Why have you survived? Vipradharma Chutashraya. Because in all of those circumstances, in all of those principles, in all those circumstances of life which you had to navigate, you always took shelter of Vipra, Dharma, and Achutya. This means that whatever the complexities of our life may be, whether we're in school, whether we have work, whether we're living in a brahmacharya ashram, whether we're maintaining a family, whether we're a sannyasi, it's not that challenges in life will not come. Challenges in life will come. Tests will come. Reversals of fortune will come. Unforeseen obstacles will come. A scarcity of resources will come. And just all-out inconvenience to our mind and body, it will come. But these tests come, these challenges come by the mercy of Krishna. These obstacles, these reversals of fortune, they enter into our life by the mercy of Krishna. For what purpose? Vipradharma Chutashraya. To show us directly or indirectly that the only security which we have in this world, the only shelter which we have in this world, the only hope which we have in this world, lie within the example of the Vipras, which Srila Prabhupada translates as Vaishnavas in the purport. Dharma, the principles of religion, which Srila Prabhupada translates as devotional service, Bhagavat Dharma, and Achutya, Krishna himself. So, Kunti Devi, when she is praying to the Lord, she says, Vipada Shastutashvashvat tatra tatra jagat guru. Bhavatam darshanam yatsyat apurnam bhavadarshanam. That whatever reversals of fortune need to come, whatever personal inconvenience I may need to go through, whatever you want to send to me, Lord, please send it to me now. And allow these challenges, allow these difficulties to become more and more and more. Why? Because apurnam bhavadarshanam. Because the more that those reversals of fortune come, the more I'm in a position to take shelter of you in the form of devotional service, in the form of the instructions of the devotees, and in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is real humility. This is what it means to cultivate humility. Is that pride means when things are not going our way, when reversals of fortune are coming our way, we try to unnecessarily and artificially prevent them from coming. Whereas a devotee, because they're atta eva shanta, because the Vaishnava is without any material desire. They don't desire liberation from the inconveniences of material life. Rather, they allow those things to come and they deepen their surrender to Krishna. They deepen their devotion to Krishna by being fully absorbed in taking shelter of the Vaishnavas, by taking shelter of the principles of Dharma, and taking shelter of Krishna himself. So this is the lesson which we need to draw from the Srimad Bhagavatam, is that you find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, nothing is straight, everything is crooked. Why is it crooked? Because Krishna is crooked, and Krishna is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So nothing in the Srimad Bhagavatam is straightforward. Everything is in complete alignment with the same obstacles and challenges which we also have to face. It just requires a little bit of discrimination to extract those principles. When we take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and when we see the lessons of the Lord coming through our life, then this helps us deepen our appreciation for Krishna. This helps us deepen our faith in Krishna. So this principle of, we often hear this shraddha to prema, tau shraddha tatau sadhusanga nartha nivritti syat. It's, the first word is shraddha. And the acharyas explain that each quality doesn't diminish after a new quality is developing in that scale. It's an evolution of the previous thing. So just because one comes to the stage of ruchi doesn't mean that they give up sadhusanga. It's something which is gradually manifesting. And anartha nivritti exists all the way up to the stage of perfection. And the last thing to be eradicated is the reactions of Vaishnava aparad. So all these principles of shraddha, they're gradually evolving in the course of our devotional service. So the principle is that when we go through the circumstances of life with the mood of cultivating surrender, sharanagati, for these three principles of vipra, dharma, chutashraya, when we cultivate this mood of sharanagati towards those principles, then in the course of our life, as we do that and we overcome those inconveniences, we overcome those tests, and we come out victorious in the midst of those challenges, then Krishna grants us a gift. What is that gift? Shraddha. He grants us the gift that our heart can be more directly attached to Him. It can be more directly involved with Him, and we become uninterested in the circumstances of this world. What's that verse? Vidyate hridaye grantis chidyante sarva samsaya kishyanti chasya karmani just evatma ishvare. That when one is doing this regularly, cultivating surrender and being gifted with faith, the gift of faith, the practical effect that it has on our heart is vidyate hridaye grantis. That faith begins to cut through our material attachment to this world. And what's the result? Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Janadasya Sivairagyam Janam Jnanam Shadyada Hoitikam. We become gifted with knowledge and we become gifted with detachment. So we can't understand why circumstances come into our life. Just as the principle of Dharma can't understand why the earth is in this position. We similarly can't understand why miseries arise in our life, why there's reversals of fortune, which come. But the principle is that the best part of valor is to maintain principles despite all kinds of odds. And I'll just end with this verse to summarize. When Bhishma Dev is glorifying the Pandavas, he says, Nahi yasya karichit rajan pumam vedas viditsitam yad vignasaya ya yukta muyanti kavayopihi. He says, no one can understand the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, I think it's best that we simply surrender unto Him. Rather than trying to understand and decipher, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? We can simply take shelter of the fact that anything we're going through, we don't need to find the root cause of it. We don't need to figure out who did this, who did that. We have no one to blame in this world. We have no one to compete with in this world. Our only duty in life is to cultivate this principle of becoming more and more surrendered to the principles of Vipra Dharma Chutashraya. Becoming more aware of the conclusions of Bhagavad Dharma, becoming more attached to the guidance of senior Vaishnavas, becoming more identified with the friendships amongst equals, and becoming more compassionate to those who are less qualified than us. And when we cultivate knowledge of devotional service and friendship with the Vaishnavas, the natural byproduct is we develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Achutya. This is the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam, to direct us towards this consciousness. Without any consideration of an impersonal or individualistic goal or achievement, it's directing us towards a completely selfless and a completely surrendered consciousness by which we can develop the same qualities of surrender and devotion which we see in the personalities of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tadapuna mukta samasta bandhanas tad bhava bhava anukritashraya. Prahlad Maharaj says that as one goes on hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and taking shelter of the principles of devotional service, that tad bhava bhava anukritashraya, that their consciousness begins to reflect or begins to absorb the consciousness of the personalities of the Bhagavatam. Through that service of the Bhagavatam, of hearing Bhagavatam regularly, they begin to imbibe those qualities. Just as if you put an iron rod in fire, you develop all the qualities. The iron rod develops all the qualities of fire. So in the same way, when we are taking shelter of this example, which Bhishma Dev is revealing to be the essence of religion, and we take shelter of the examples of the Srimad Bhagavatam, our consciousness becomes more and more qualified to render service to Krishna in such a way that it is pleasing and satisfying to Him, and that pleasure and satisfaction is the ultimate goal of our life. Hare Krishna. Rahu. So we can stop there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we can have a little bit of time for discussion. What time are you guys generally in when you start Bhagavatam at 8:15? 8 o'clock. Okay, we have 5 minutes. Yeah.
So, you mentioned Tako Pratishta Shri.
Yeah.
That verse was actually part of the Yaksha Prashna. When Yudhishthira was speaking to Yaksha Dharma himself, Dharma asks him, what is true Dharma? And that's when he quotes this verse in the Vanaparva of the Mahabharata. Mahajana. So that is when he quotes it. And goes to show that he was willing to take that to heart as well later when he was hearing from Bhishma Dev. So
he spoke that verse before Bhishma, and then he set the example by actually approaching Bhishma Dev. Amazing. Very nice. Thank you. I didn't know that.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So we see the Pandavas, they've always followed dharma. There's only one thing that kind of pricks me, because they had the chance to protect Draupadi in that Satsabha, but Yudhishthira chose not to do it. But it was his higher dharma to protect her than to follow the rules of the elders. Why did he choose not to protect? I understand in the case of Bhishma Dev, because he had given his word that he would protect whoever's on the throne. He did not. So that's why he faltered, played with his words, and did not come to the protection of Draupadi. That's in a way okay. But why did Yudhishthira not do it? Because Bhim was angry and he was willing to break the bones of everybody there. But Yudhishthira told him to stop, and he was just standing there as a bystander. Why was that?
Actually, I don't know. I think Vijay Prabhu, you probably can.
No, it just came to mind that nothing happens without the Krishna's arrangement. Our thoughts, our desires, Krishna's. So this amazing pastime where Krishna appears is a sorry. So Krishna wanted that pastime to happen, because remember that pastime where he cut himself and he brought the sari, and he cut a little piece of her sari up. So the result of that was Krishna gave unlimited sari. He wanted that pastime to take place, and that's just one idea. So, and that's an amazing pastime. The first time ever that Krishna incarnated as a sari, and that wouldn't have happened had Yudhishthira said, all right, this is enough. This is annihilate these guys. And Bhima could have done it. It was just waiting. Just give me the word. I'll tear these guys up.
I think on another level, because I'm trying to recollect the past time. I don't know Mahabharata so well. Just basically what's in Bhagavatam is what I know from Mahabharata. So, from what I understand, Yudhishthira in his eyes had rightfully lost the match, and it was his fault that Draupadi was given. So he saw that because he had lost the match, for him to retaliate would be adharmic, because he had, I mean, from what I understand, Shakundi, the one who was rolling the dice, his dice, he is either a very good gambler, or his dice were.
I think it would be something like that.
Yeah, they
destroyed the Kuru family because his sister had to put blindfold over. Destroy that was his whole. He was in there as a friend, but actually he was an enemy of the Kurus. He wanted to destroy him because his beautiful sister.
Yeah.
Her eyes.
But were his dice altered in any way?
They were made from the bones of his parents.
So were they altered in such a way that they would land on a particular score? Okay.
Something was there.
Something like that.
Yeah. So regardless, Yudhishthira lost the match. So because he, in one sense, rightfully lost the match, and he had bet his wife in the match, it was, in one sense, his hands were behind his back. So in that particular circumstance, he had rightfully lost Draupadi. And actually, it was Dhritarashtra who kind of ended the thing. He shut down the whole thing. He said, enough. And then he actually gave Draupadi back to the Pandavas and gave everything back. And then he lost everything again.
Pretty dramatic.
I was reading Mahabharata when I was in Denver a few years ago. I got really sick in Denver, and the only thing I could do was chant my rounds and sit in a chair and read. So I was just reading Mahabharata as much as I could, and I got to around this part, and then after that sickness, I never picked it up again. So I need to get back into it.
Never read the whole thing.
I need to read it. Yeah, I need to read it. Suvarna Bindu Prabhu's read it many times, and he's constantly quoting pastimes from it. You guys have anything to say? Ananda Swarup Prabhu? Yeah, one last comment.
Yeah, I was thinking like sometimes we're shown directly or indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just reflecting today. Like we were in Japajal this morning. We had, or Vaisheshika Prabhu was, I think, traveling for a lot, so he wasn't able to host it, and everyone was just kind of like, there chanting japa. Way less people joined because Vaisheshika Maharaj is not leading it. And then we're all just chanting, and then suddenly he appears, So it was kind of like, it was like that direct kind of recognition, like, oh, you guys are doing the right thing, getting on even when Maharaj isn't there, because that was Maharaj's instruction to, do this japa in the morning. So yeah, but those instances are very rare. Usually it's more like an indirect.
No, I think on a daily basis we can experience, like I've seen in my life, anyone who has like been sick and then they like miss like their morning japa, they miss morning program, or they eat some food which has like been cooked by someone who's due to circumstances. Like I noticed when I was in India once, I was in a really bad circumstance and I had to eat something, so I ate at a Govinda's at a temple. And I just felt horrible the rest of the day from eating it, because it wasn't cooked by a devotee probably. Those restaurants, they don't have devotee cooks, and I had nothing else to eat, and I hadn't eaten in a really long time, so I had to eat something. So I have found that, practically speaking, you can see in the world, even amongst secular society, people following a vegetarian diet, people doing yoga, people interested in Ayurveda. These are somewhat principles of religion, or they're byproducts of religion. And when they do that, there's a practical result. Whereas if, someone's promiscuous, or someone's eating meat, or, completely unregulated in their behavior, there's a result which comes from that. So you can practically see how Dharma is unfolding and the effects of Dharma in people's lives. Just by observing the effects of people breaking the principles of Dharma, one can understand the glory of Dharma. Prabhupada has a purport where he says we can understand how powerful Dharma is through observing the effects which a lack of Dharma has had on society. He has a purport like that. Okay, I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Vijay Prabhu, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.